Hello, friends. I am Coach Jay, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about cPTSD, self-regulation, and what's called the window of tolerance. I always like to start my class with a corny dad joke, and today's is this. Can you give me a three-letter word that starts with gas? So a three-letter word that starts with gas. Very simple. It's car. But All right. If you can take two deep healing breaths with me, in through the nose, out through the mouth, preferably with your eyes closed, but however you feel safe. So, deep breath in, hold it for a second, out through the mouth. There you go. One more time. Hold it for a second and out through the mouth. All right. One of the worst symptoms of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or cPTSD, is the inability to experience and maintain self-regulation. This is especially expressed after we discover a betrayal in our relationships. How many of you watching have discovered a betrayal in your relationship, and there's no way on earth you're going to self-regulate, especially during trigger times? So what exactly is cPTSD? Well, cPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, is a chronic condition brought upon by exposure to multiple traumatic events. CPTSD is not the same as PTSD, which can occur after an exposure to one traumatic event. Now, different professionals have slightly different nuances with that, but this is according to the DSM-5. All right. Typically forming in early childhood as a result of severe and repeated abuse and occurring in adults, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, among other things, it has a lack of self-regulation. As I just told you, we can certainly see PTSD after the trauma of betrayal, as well as if there's any unaddressed trauma. This can lead to all kinds of things, many things that you've heard before, from amnesia to alienation to re-victimization, which oftentimes we do to ourselves. Chronic mistrust, anxiety, dissociation, flashbacks, which I just told you, triggers, nightmares, night sweats, body memories, which is why sometimes around D-Day, let's just say your D-Day was give or take around Christmas, you could be irritable around Christmas and not even know why. Well, your body remembers. Shame, volatile emotions, like I just talked about. Your emotions are all over the place, especially in the first 6 months. I mean, I talk to people years out of betrayal. They'll say, Mr. J, when I experienced anger after my discovery of betrayal, I didn't even know who I was or what I was capable of doing. I was so that out of control or dissociated from myself. And they can get into severe depression and irritable bowel syndrome if you let it go, and many other physical effects. There are definitely more symptoms, but there's too many to obviously go over here. However, they're all life-altering and can certainly lead to self-harm in various forms, various ways. Many people with cPTSD have a horrible time with their window of tolerance as they struggle to understand why they behave the way that they do. So all this talk of self-regulation, what exactly is self-regulation? Self-regulation is simply managing your energy, your feelings, your thoughts, and your actions effectively. Self-regulation is crucial for our well-being, our interpersonal interactions, educational growth, our self-esteem, you name it. Self-regulation also assists in us problem solving. I mean, if you are not in a position where you're self-regulated, you're not engaging your frontal cortex. And if you're not engaging your frontal cortex, you're not making logical, rash decisions. We must be aware of ourselves, comprehend our emotions, handle most situations without stress. We have to get along with others. We have to maintain focus and develop self-regulation. One of the hardest things to do is right after the discovery of any type of betrayal or traumatic event is go back into being a parent, go back into the workforce, go back into caring for others. These are things that are profoundly challenging. However, what happens if we throw cPTSD into the mix? Survivors face emotions that they don't want and behave in ways that they don't understand. We might fly off the handle or have angry outbursts, and know that these outbursts, obviously, we know where they're originated, and they can certainly last a long time. I mean, people that go into a post betrayal or post traumatic rage, they have a full gas tank, and once that's depleted, they can fill it up again on fumes, and keep going. I mean, people can rant for hours and rage for hours and hours, until you almost self-exhaust. Self-regulation is challenging for people with cPTSD, as their brains have been rewired to respond to any perceived threat with fight or flight response. And think about it, in our fight or flight response, a lot of the blood that we need for logical thinking or to relax goes to our arms to fight or our legs to flight. So we're not working with the full capacity of, I mean, all of our energy and from a cellular level in our blood supply and our everything we need to function properly goes into, like I said, our arms to fight or our legs to flight. And we can't think rationally like we're in a state of rest and digest. People who live with this condition also have a shallow window of tolerance. Now, what is the window of tolerance? Well, first coined by psychiatrist Daniel Siegel, the window of tolerance describes the optimal emotional zone of brains that inhabit to function well and allow us to thrive. So this is the area that basically just kind of controls our self-regulation over what we're able to, what we have the capacity for. On either side of the optimal zone, there's two other zones known as the hyperarousal zone and the hypoarousal zone. Each of these obviously have their own characteristics. So the optimal arousal zone comprises a sense of being grounded, openness, present, curious, has the ability to allow for emotional regulation and a capacity to tolerate daily stressors. This is optimal. Optimal arousal allows us to feel good. And when we feel good, we're more equipped to handle situations in an adult manner. If your window of tolerance is obscured and you're the victim of internal or external stresses, you might move beyond your window of tolerance into what's called the hyperarousal zone. The hyperarousal zone describes an emotional state with high energy, panic, anxiety, overwhelm, and an exaggerated startle response. A lot of people after a traumatic event stay or kind of live in a hyperarousal zone, which people call hypervigilance. Being hyper aroused causes you to react to your impulses with increased anger and aggression. It's another word for this I call is psychological sunburn. If I go up to you right now and tap you on the back and say, "Hey, how's life?" You might be able to say, "Hey, Mr. J, life is going and flowing. I'm living, loving, paying my bills, yada, yada." But if you have a sunburn on your back and I go up to you and I tap you back, "Hey, how's life?" You're gonna be like, "Ow, are you serious?" Your response is going to be different. That's the case after some people with betrayal. Well, majority of people after betrayal and a traumatic event. Now you're living in a state of psychological sunburn or hyper arousal. The hyperaroused state often leads to difficulty in calmly processing information and reasoning. Also, when in a hyperaroused state, you find it challenging to focus on what you're doing as you are in a heightened alert that can be overwhelming. And, I'm going to be honest with you, it sucks being in this state. It sucks because, you can't enjoy daily activities. You can't ever really get into a state of rest and digest. And if you do, you can't enjoy that state of rest and digest because you're not living in it long enough. Your brain is always on guard. You could be having sex and triggers come. You could be at a grocery store thinking, who's around the aisle that's going to jump out and try to steal my purse or punch me in the face. Or you're just living in a constant state of hyperarousal. So your brain really has been rewired. It's not to say that you can't manage it again, but it's to say that it's been rewired and you're going to have to learn to manage it again if you want to start that healing process. So in contrast with hyperarousal, hypoarousal is a mental state characterized by numbness, depression, withdrawal, shutting down, shame, disconnect, and a flat affect. You're just like, yeah, you're almost in an effort state. I just don't care. Don't, nothing affects me, you know. Yeah, so and so's house just got on fire. I feel bad. Hope they're safe, you know. Um, in hypoarousal, you are typically affected by decreased physiological and mental activity. In the hypoarousal zone, one might show signs such as slowed movements, lack of responsiveness to what's happening around them, and reduced muscle tone. This is a trauma response. This is a trauma response. Sometimes people experience shallow and slow breathing. They may also stare into space. When hypoaroused, it's almost like a dissociation. Ideally, a person would remain in the optimal zone to avoid becoming hyper or hypoaroused. For many people that ever watch like an animal show, when a lion chases a zebra and a zebra is like running, 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 um, it's in a state of hyperarousal. Then when the lion doesn't get it, the lion gives up and goes to chase something else. You'll see that zebra kind of shaking his body. Well, what that zebra is doing is actually shaking off that traumatic state, and then in going back into that window of tolerance. So what we have to do is metaphorically shake off our trauma. It doesn't take 3 seconds like it does a zebra. It takes months and years, sometimes decades, to get back into that. Okay, now I can go back to eating grass and not constantly looking around that someone's going to attack me. So how to widen and maintain your window of tolerance. Everyone occasionally falls outside the window of tolerance and beyond the ability to obtain emotional regulation, especially in the first 3 to 4 months after a discovery or some type of trauma or betrayal, which personally, I call it the acute trauma phase. Like 3 to 4 months after when you discover betrayal, you are in a fetal position, crying, begging God to take a limb rather than experience what you're feeling. The objective is not only to broaden our tolerance window, but also to lean and to learn to be resilient when faced with challenging situations. Building our window of tolerance means practicing mindfulness, building social connections, and improving how we react when stressed. Some of the key things to do with emotional self-regulation are basics things that take no money, and that's eating healthy food. Now maybe that does take a little bit of money, but you know I get the thing to do is to run to comfort food that doesn't feed your body, and your body needs healthier food. A bag of carrots, $2. I mean, some fruits that are on sale, plenty of water. Lord have mercy, I can't even express this enough, urge this enough, especially when you're crying buckets of tears. Getting regular exercise. And that not only makes you feel good, but it also releases chemicals that are needed to help you manage and rewire your brain for this healing journey. Sleep. And I know a lot of you can't sleep. I'm not a big drug pusher. Melatonin works. That's relatively natural for a lot of people, but your body needs time to heal itself. And when you get no sleep, it can't heal itself. And then you're trying to deal with all the daily stresses of what every day demands of us when we've had no sleep. It's just not a good mix at all. And of course, seeking out mental support, which by watching this video, you are seeking out some mental health professional support just by watching this class. So these vital components of self-regulation can be combined with grounding practices, deep breathing, meditation, and movement. You can also get into trauma yoga. You can get into tapping, EFT. You can get into, and these are things you can do on your own. You don't need to spend money. Journaling, I can't recommend enough journaling. A gratitude journal. Studies have shown that rewires the neural pathways in the brain. One last tool you can use to build the window of tolerance and control your behavior is to laugh. I mean, man, that is I really can't stress the importance enough to laugh. Now, listen, you're sitting here saying, Mr. J, I'm on the verge of losing it. I don't want to laugh. Well, I get that. But here's what I do want to tell you. Laughter releases dopamine, which is your feel good chemical, in your brain and makes you want to repeat those behaviors. So even if you put on a funny comedy, a funny movie, a funny show, or you force yourself to laugh, or you force yourself to look at some jokes, you might not burst out in hysterical laughter, but it will start to change the way you think, or for a millisecond, get your mind off of the pain and the wound. And all it takes is, pebbles make mountains and raindrops make seas. All it takes is some consistency, looking into that laughter material, that humor material, where you start to open up your window of tolerance a little bit more. So laughter releases dopamine, which is, like I said, a feel-good chemical, and it makes you want to repeat those behaviors, to watch more funny shows, to listen to more funny comedians. Think of funny jokes that you've been told of in the past, whatever. You can always find something to laugh out loud about. If not, devote some time to reading comic books or watching, like I said, funny movies, funny show. Listen to a comedian you always liked. Again, you may not laugh out loud, but it's really going to start to like put a little wedge into that sadness, that depression. So I hope you got a little out of today's class. There was a lot in terms of, cPTSD and window of tolerance and all this other stuff. But when you implement some of these things consistently, that's when you're going to start seeing these small changes. You can't leave the USA on boat and expect to get to China in a day going 10 miles per hour. But if you're consistently going 10 miles per hour, before you know it, you're like, wow, I'm halfway to China. So above anything else, be consistent with some of these tips and techniques. I wish you all the best and never hesitate to reach out to me for any reason. God bless and take care of yourself.